thing to do. They're not
I got
trash.
you.
They are a good company. Okay. But I do believe that their ultimate goal was and is to eliminate the realtor. And
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is the Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Welcome back to the Closing Table. My name is Kevin C. McIntosh, your host, and I do have a very special guest joining us on this episode to share his knowledge. Want to welcome Mr. Joe Muck to the show. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great, Kevin, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and ready to get into it, brother.
Yeah, man. Like I always say, thanks for taking time out your busy day to be with us. We're here to talk real estate, but we like to play games, be a little immature before all of that, man. I got an icebreaker for you called word association, Joe. And it's exactly what it sounds like. I got some words associated with real estate. I'm going to spew those out to you, and you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind associated with that, whether that's a corresponding word, definition, the story, whatever the case. You ready?
Oh man, we got a little Rorschach test going on. Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. First and foremost, mortgage.
Money,
Okay. Purchase agreement.
contract, legal,
Okay. Underwriting.
process. That's one word, but a sentence would be it can be a process.
Got you. Home equity loan.
An asset.
And lastly, quit claim deed.
Terrible.
I swear I get that same reaction with that phrase every time. That's so funny. Well, thanks, Joe. Appreciate you starting the game off, starting to show off a little bit lighthearted and a little bit fun, man. So why don't you take this time right now, tell us exactly who is Joe Muck outside of real estate, if you could do so in 60 seconds or less.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Born and raised in Detroit, so come from quite a different background than I feel like I'm raising my children in today.
Yeah.
And there's good and bad things to that, right? And as it is, I'm a fun-loving guy. I'm a very caring individual, but I'm also a very sarcastic individual. I'm sure at times I've accidentally hurt some people's feelings, but I sure didn't mean to. I sure meant to be, just making a little joke and things like that. I love a lot of things. I like this nice warm weather. I enjoy the sunshine and being outdoors as much as possible. Whether it's a little walk, a hike, going fishing, golfing. I don't hunt, but I would do so. It's just I haven't. That type of thing. I
Same.
just want to be outdoors, man. Just want to be
Same.
outdoors.
I feel that, man. Yeah, that's what's up, man. You seem like a fun person just based off that, Joe. I like the fact
I
you said I'm
try.
sarcastic and I probably hurt some people's feelings. I feel the exact same way, man. I feel the exact same. I tend to just say some things that are just on my mind, which I have to learn to stop doing that. But yeah, you gotta break a couple eggs to make an omelet, though.
That's true. And I try to remember, I'm not a professional comedian. So,
Yeah, that
Anthony
part.
Jeselnik or Tom Segura or Joe Rogan or those guys can say things. People know they mean to joke. I'm a
Right.
realtor. So when I say something like that, it's like, was he serious?
Like,
No, I
what is he
wasn't
doing? He's
serious.
supposed to be
Yeah.
serious. Is he serious?
Yeah. Hey, trust me, my
I get it,
Facebook page
man.
is tame compared to what it used to be. So,
I get it, man. I get it, man. Appreciate you having some fun with us, Joe. I want to talk about your story because with your specific situation, you went from working with a boutique brokerage to one of the
yeah.
big brand brokerage. So let's talk about
Yeah.
that. In what ways has working with this boutique brokerage versus a large brokerage shaped your approach to real estate?
Man, I'll tell you what. Um, the boutique approach that I experienced, anyways, I can't speak for all boutiques, but I can speak
Mm-hmm.
for the one I worked for. And the beautiful thing about it was the training. It really was the training because a lot of newer agents were joining, younger or lesser experienced. So, it doesn't matter how many years you've had a license, it really matters how much selling you've done. Because if I had a license for 10 years, but I sold one a year, am I more experienced than someone who's been licensed for 3 years but sells 30 a year? Probably
Right.
not. Maybe,
Right.
maybe not. Right. And the training that came with that, because you had a smaller group. right? You had 20 agents and, the owner and the broker and those folks that were really helping out. And so you really learned a lot about the business because you had that close experience and close proximity to people that were doing transactions. So
Mm-hmm.
you haven't done one, but you feel like you've done three because you're talking to people, and it's not the usual like around the water cooler, so to speak, in a bigger office where it's like, I got this deal right now, and so and so's this, or I got the appraisal. Those things are helpful too. But this was literally like you came in at 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning, and you grabbed a coffee or something, and then you just started talking. But then you really started talking. You really started talking about not
Right.
just the appraisal, specifically what happened, when did it get ordered, why did it go bad, why did it go good, blah 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 blah. And then we had trainings, and that was a great experience that honestly probably kept me in the business. Because when you first started and you don't know anything, it could be really scary out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that speaks volumes, man. I was just recently talking about, being in that work environment where you can actually like bounce ideas off of teammates and coworkers and things like that, and being in that type of cohesive environment, and how it affects and your productivity ultimately. And you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And the differences between these large, ultimately just on an overall scale, large business versus a smaller business. I have pretty much that same experience from working in broadcasting. I worked for these big companies, iHeartMedia's, and I worked for smaller locally owned radio stations also. And I mean, there's advantages to both and
Hmm.
disadvantages to both, but the concentration that you get with the smaller locally owned businesses and boutiques and stuff like that, you just really can't compare it, because with the bigger companies, it's just one overall umbrella blanket training or whatever the case may be. One size fits all. But when you have those smaller boutiques and smaller brands and businesses, they can really hone in on the specifics and things like that. And what you just said pretty much speaks to that, even to my own experience. So I can agree with that. I appreciate
Yeah,
that
and
perspective.
and to kind of back up what you're saying, the bigger brand, things were great too. I had great people there. I have some
Yeah.
friends that I still talk to, still help out. We help each other because we're independent contractors basically, and I'm literally independent. I'm my own person. Right? I don't have a team,
Mm-hmm.
and so we still do those things. But the training was different. There was a lot of training, tons of training, but it was up to you to go to it. In the boutique
Right.
style, you basically were there. You know what I mean? So in the bigger brand, it was like, hey, training on Tuesday, training on Friday, training next Wednesday at 1. Here's the schedule. Show up, don't show up.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
Now, with that being said, coming back to that experience, you got 200 agents in an office, maybe 100 of them are doing production, and let's say 75 of those are really doing some production. That broker is seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of contracts a year.
For
He or
sure.
she, they know a lot. They know a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's someone that's still great to have on your team. So it's not a knock against it. It's just a model that works for some and not for others. Both models, right? Some folks are not going to thrive in that boutique brokerage. Some folks are not going to
100%.
thrive in that big brokerage. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. To each his own. Yeah, whatever works works. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yep.
essentially. So I like to pick the brains of agents when it comes to which side of the fence they're on, right? I mean, I guess in regards to who you're representing, the buyer versus the seller. I want you to speak on the buyer side for a quick second, right? What are some common mistakes that buyers make when they are choosing their agent?
Mm. One might be simply just the way they go about finding them might come from advertising or something that they see.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is statistics are always interesting, right? We see them and we talk about them a lot with other things. But if I say anything in real estate, it's true. But what did it really mean? So, in other words, the top 20%, we see something like this all the time as the top 20% producer. Okay, but do you know what that meant? Because in
mm,
reality, there's a decent amount of agents that just have a license and are only doing this part time. They're only helping friends and family. They're only doing a couple transactions. So if I've got 60% of agents doing less than 6 transactions a year, and that's, I think, actually low. I think it's a much higher number than 60% only doing six or less. All
right.
right. then to be in the top 20% really wasn't that difficult. Now, it's an accomplishment. I'm not taking away from it. Okay. I'm a part of it. Okay. I'm not taking away from it. I'm just saying that if you see that top 20% producer, top 10%, what did that mean? You just saw something. So
Correct.
that's, I think, a big mistake. You kind of go into it, if you don't know the agent, you weren't referred to him or her, you go into it by some of this information that you really didn't know where it was coming from in the first place. So you don't
Mhm.
ask about that. You might ask, I rarely get asked how many houses I sell.
Good point.
You know, it's like maybe it's because I have confidence, maybe because I have knowledge, maybe other reasons.
Mm,
But the fact of the matter is that why did you, how many or whatever, and it may or may not matter how many, okay, because we all had to have our first transaction to have our hundredth, right?
correct.
But at the same time, if that's what you're focusing on as a buyer, is that person's experience, and you're comparing them to the top producer or the this or the that, then the questions need to be the same across the board, right?
Right, right. And to add on to that, it's like, okay, yeah, you're in the top 20% of agents in the state or something like that. Or let's say your county. If there's 5,000 agents, that's only like putting you what in one of 1,000 essentially. So at least 1,000 other agents that perform at least as well as you. So that's I mean, you can out of 1,000, there's plenty of other people that are probably just as qualified, if not more. So just using the claim of fame like top 20% or something isn't,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's not doing your due diligence, if you ask me. That's a great point that
right.
you brought up right there. Cause sometimes even doing my research, I'm like, oh wow, they're the top 20% of their market. That's what's up. But then you look, it's
Yep.
like it's like 500 other ones right above them or something. So yeah,
Yeah.
thinking about that, it makes sense now.
Yeah, and it's not a real, like I say, it's not a knock. I'm happy to have it. I'm happy to receive any
Yeah, no, yeah,
recognition and award that I receive, right? And
yeah.
I'm happy to say that I'm a part of it. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of using that. If you're finding your agent using that information, that was the question that you asked. Like, so what's some mistakes? Some mistakes would be not really vetting the person, going off of some statistical knowledge that is impactful. But like you said, if you're one of 1,000, that 1,000 is still better than the other 4,000. But
Right.
so,
Right.
yeah. So it's just one of those things,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. No, I get it. I get it. What about technology? What role does technology play in your work as a buyer's agent, and how are you using that to help your clients and yourself, for that matter?
Well, you know what's funny? I don't really particularly love some of the features of our MLS that we have locally. However, that
Mm,
piece of technology is the easiest one that I find some agents still don't actually use. And what I mean by that is, Kevin, we meet, we talk about what you want to find in the house. And I might say a few things. I know you want a fence, but
mm-hmm.
the only way that we know that the house has a fence is if the other realtor put it in. And we know that even if we went with that top 20%, there's a bottom 80%, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
that bottom 80%, maybe they didn't add in that it had a fence. So how about this, Kevin? I'm going to look for that 2,000 or bigger square foot. I'm going to look for that 3 bedroom or more. I'm going to look for this price point, these school districts, the things that we talked about. The fence, let's look through the images real quick and decide whether or not that fence is there and if that's actually still important. Because maybe the dream house is there and all you need to do is put up that fence, right?
Right.
Things like
Right.
that. Well, you would be surprised at how many agents, number one, either over qualify that search result so they're not getting results, or don't automatically send the results to their clients. They're manually going in and sending them. Now imagine if this morning, let's take it back, we were supposed to do this podcast a different time and we had to
Mm-hmm.
cancel because my dog got sick. Now imagine on
Hope
that
they're
day that
doing
my,
better. By the way.
yeah, he's doing good, I would flip the camera on, you'd see him laying there, you say, yeah, that's doing good, he's just laying here. But we canceled because of that, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
imagine if that same day I was supposed to send my 20, buyer clients the houses that they needed to receive for the day.
Mm,
Man, I was there for my clients. I took the calls,
right.
but I was not thinking about that for a couple hours at least. I was thinking
Right.
about, is my poor doggy going to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, instead, the MLS has a simple tool set up where it automatically came to you. And not only did it come to you, it came to you within minutes of it being listed. So it takes away from the need to go to the third party sites, which again,
Mm,
they're a great user interface. Zillow is honestly a great user interface, right? It's easy for the user to use. You don't need Zillow if I set up a search for you. You don't need Redfin. You don't need Realtor.com. You don't need any, because you got the search. That's a simple one. From
Right.
there, of course, some of the basics, right? Your text messaging and your Facebook messaging, whatever. WhatsApp has come into play. You get
Okay.
clients that don't have a U.S. number. I helped a client out in Ann Arbor because they were opening a brand new facility in Michigan. He was here for a week. He was from Sweden or Belgium, somewhere over there, somewhere, and we had to use WhatsApp because it was long distance each way, right? So a
Mm.
little something like that. And I know a lot of agents that are using WhatsApp for those reasons, not the encryption reason, but for the local phone number, if you will, is not local, right?
Yeah.
Um, I, I try to keep it simple though, because I have clients ranging from, that new age, they don't talk to you, they just text and email,
Yep.
to I try to send a quick text, hey, is the wash machine still working? And it's a phone call back, right? So you get both those sides of things. So I try to keep up on the technology, like the AI and that type of stuff, but I'm trying not
Mm-hmm.
to put so much into my brand that I eliminate some clients because I have done that in the past.
Ah, that's interesting. And
I
can
came
can you
through
speak?
and yeah, sure.
Please
I
go
mean,
ahead.
not on the buy side. It was on the listing side, but I
Right.
came through and I said with, and I don't do like this big, huge presentation. I said, here's all the things we're going to do. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like, the Facebook ad. Oh, I don't want to do a Facebook ad. Well, why not?
Mm.
Well, I don't want everyone to see my house. And I said, well, uh, there, uh, this is what I sounded like, right? Because I said, wait,
I
you don't want
know.
everyone to see your house. It's for sale. I want as many people to see your house as
That is
possible.
a fact. Like what?
So, but I didn't know what to say, and I was focusing on even little stuff that's not tech based, like maybe staging, or something like that.
Right, right.
And they just didn't want so much inconvenience as what they felt was in their life was
That's
inconvenience with the staging,
crazy.
the Facebook ad, the posting about it, bringing all the people, the open house. Didn't want an open house. So not all of it was technology, but the fact of the matter was, for these folks, they felt like this was a lot to take on within the next couple of weeks, and they did not want it all. But specifically, they didn't want a Facebook ad, and they didn't want. Gosh, there was definitely something else that I had that was more tech related that they were like, oh, maybe it was accepting notifications through showing time. That's set up basically either
Mm.
through an app or through text messaging. And they were like, well, I don't have a tech. They had like a T9, flip phone, so text messaging
Wow.
wasn't going to work for them, right?
Oh man.
They were simple folks, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, well, I got all these cool things, and I'm gonna do an electronic lockbox, and they got to use Bluetooth and blah blah blah. And they're like, this guy is not for me, right?
That is a
So,
great point. Yeah.
yeah. So I try not to pigeonhole myself too much with
Mm-hmm.
with blowing them away with oh, I got 15 apps, and I got the website, and I got the this and the that. I just do
Right.
it. I just do it on my side. I tell you that I'm going to take care of you with marketing and this and that. Just do it on my side.
That's so crazy because I have never thought about that. Like using too much technology to the point your clients could get turned off. I mean, obviously, it's a generational thing. We're not all dealing with the Gen Zs and the millennials buying homes, even though they are. And
Hmm.
that probably is the route for them. But then, like you said, you do have the older generation who probably still using rotary phones and landlines. It's like no text message, no internet, put the for sale sign out there, put it in a newspaper,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just
exactly.
and see what happens. It's like, whoa, we haven't done that in
Yeah,
like 25 years, but whatever you want at the end of the day. And it's so nice to see that you knew to make those adjustments. I mean, at the end of the day, you can give your clients all the advice, and that's what I'm learning more and more on the closing table. You give them all the advice and suggestions, but at the end of the day, they have the last call. They make the
right.
last call.
Exactly.
So
And I do try to put that ball in their court. So coming back to
yeah.
the buyers, how much should I offer for this house? I know that they got three offers already and they're getting more. Well, that answer is not up to me. How much do you want this house? And that answer is, here's what I think the comps are for the home. Here's
Mm-hmm.
where I see the market going over the next, year or so as far as an increase. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
comfortable personally at a number like this. However, right, come back and say, Kevin, you're buying the house. Kevin, what number are you going to sleep good to know you did or did not get that house? In other words, if the house was listed for 300,000 and you bid 315 and you find out it sold for 317.5, are you going to say, oh, I should have put
Ah.
317.5? Then if so, then guess what? The number's not 315, it's 317.5. But I might spend 2,500 but you might lose the house, right?
Right,
Or
right.
are you going to say, I'm glad they got it for 317.5. I would have never gone that high. Then
Mm-hmm.
315 was the right number, right? That part is up to you. I can give you the data and the information, but what one makes you sleep good and happy, and that's the
That's
number,
correct.
right?
Something
So,
that's not
like you
gonna have
said,
you
it's
toss and turn at night. Like
exactly. Oh, I should have. Oh, I should have. I don't want to hear that.
right.
I do not want to hear that. If there was a possibility, let's do it. And so like you said, I put the ball back in your court, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, while I try to have a relationship with my clients after their clients, right? I try
Right,
to
right.
keep up with them, whether it's a newsletter, Facebook, whatever, talking, meeting up, hanging out, any of those things. It doesn't always happen,
Yeah.
but you're still living in that house. So I go away, that house doesn't. And so I don't want you to have any regrets later.
Yeah. That's a real good point. Yeah. Yeah. I never thought about the fact that some people just don't want to hear back from their realtor after they get the house. Like, okay, you
Some
got me my
folks,
home.
right?
You're a stranger now. Like,
Yeah,
God, that's crazy. Wow. Hey,
yeah,
so how are you helping negotiate the best terms when you're representing a buyer when there's another agent on the other side of the table trying to do the same thing for their seller? What's your like I don't know, your method to try to meet in the middle for most
yeah.
cases?
Well, the first thing, obviously that we should all be doing is somehow reaching out to that listing agent to find out, is there anything other than what's listed on the MLS? The MLS will say the type of terms that they're willing to accept. It may say that they need occupancy, but you want to confirm that. But like, is there
Right.
anything else, right? And why do they need occupancy? That type of thing. So, do they need occupancy because school's not getting out till a certain date? Or do they need occupancy because they had to close on another house? Do they need occupancy
Mm-hmm.
because they've got family coming? Whatever, and see if we can somehow help out with that type of thing. Um, on top of that, so once you've gotten the terms, then it's is there anything specific that they are looking for? In other words, they don't want to have to close in 30 days. They want to close actually in 45 days. Believe it or
Mm.
not, there might be some buyers out there that need to close in 30, right? There might be some
Right.
buyers out there that that can't give the occupancy, that type of stuff. So you do those few things. Those are simple. Those are easy. And I think, any good agent, those top 20% are all doing that, I think. But on top of that, from there, it's really working with your buyer and getting them to understand where we're at. All the price points and all the towns have different things, but I just was literally looking in the North Villanova area, trying to find a house that was over 2,500 square feet with, certain minimum, if you will, features
Mm-hmm.
for a certain price point. And man, let me tell you, there were two that were under $1 million that weren't brand new construction, two at that time.
Oh my
So
goodness.
when your buyer says, "Well, I'm at 600,000," I say, "Okay, that's cool. We're going to find it, but you know, it might be a challenge because there's only two that are under $1 million. I'm giving another 400,000, right?" And so
Sheesh.
then from there, you have that conversation of many, because there's such limited inventory. We're probably going over and above asking. How do you feel about that? Because if you don't feel good, then we got to do this. If you feel like,
Right.
oh, it's no problem, then we can do that. And we have that other conversation about how you're going to sleep, right? So, but it's really working with your buyer more than it is, I think, the other side at this point, because,
Okay.
you know, the buyer may or may not be willing to do certain things like the occupancy, or like they might want to give occupancy, but they want to charge basically like double what their mortgage is going to be. They want to
Mm.
charge, all these things. Someone else might be giving it up for free, you know. Um,
True.
it might be an inspection contingency. Now, I will almost never suggest to my buyers to waive an inspection,
I know, right?
but I might suggest to them, if they're looking at a house that was built in 2015 and they got all the maintenance records and this and that, why don't we do like a pass fail or something that says, hey, if as long as the inspection, results yield less than say $2,000, $2,500 worth of problems, we're moving forward. So we've
Right.
removed that out clause. I can't just say, hey, we decided, we don't like the house, so we're not buying it anymore. We can't do that because I got to provide you some information now that says you got $2,000 worth of problems. That's why we're not buying your house. You know,
Mm.
because that's what really on the listing side. That's what you're worried about. That they're going to have the buyer's remorse. They gave you 35,000 above ask.
Correct.
They gave you free occupancy. They gave. Now it's time to take, right? And so you
Mm-hmm.
go, well, this person's willing to go no inspection, so let's go with them because now they can't back out. Well, how about this person went with practically no inspection, but you should still do an inspection because you're going to move into the house. The inspection
Correct.
is going to tell you you need some downspouts buried, you need a screen repaired, you need a lock, on one of the windows in the upstairs spare bedroom, tightened. Little things like
Right.
that. It's not all bad, right? It's maintenance stuff that the homeowner might need to know. So let's do our inspection, but let's not be able to walk on it. Things like that.
Correct. 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 No, that makes sense, man. I just hate to hear about situations where people are so desperate to get into these homes that they are waiving this inspection. It's like I can't even believe people are still doing that. And I know it's a seller's market. I know it's competitive, but I just think when so many people do it, you're literally messing up the market for everybody else. So please listen to your agents, people. Listen to your
I,
agents.
I couldn't
I
agree
hate
more.
that.
You're
Yeah,
messing
I
up the
hate that.
market for everybody else because you're starting to
Yes,
set a
you
new
are.
tone of no inspection or a new tone of this or a new tone of that. And not all these things are right for everybody.
Right, making it hard for people to follow up with that. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm definitely
Yeah,
getting an inspection on this house. I'm not doing what you just did. Hey Joe,
exactly.
since we talked about technology and Zillow briefly, I want you to speak on this a little bit more. Zillow's business model specifically, including ad space and mortgage services, they provide value to real estate agents and home buyers and sellers. In what ways do you think they do provide that value?
They provide the value. First of all, like I said, their interface, if you will, is super easy, right?
Hmm.
Anybody can grab a computer or a phone and search for the properties. Anybody. So they've taken away, that inability that a lot of people had prior to Zillow. And on top of that, they can be a one-stop shop for someone who has no knowledge. They have no, people in the area that could, refer them to somebody that they've used, that they like, that they trusted. Well,
Hmm.
Zillow's got people there that are doing those things. So um, you can click on the house and very easily get a showing scheduled, get pre-approved, all those types of things. So it can be very helpful in those ways.
Right. I have to pick your brain on this, Joe, because I asked other agents about this too. I always have to ask agents how they feel about Zillow because from what I'm hearing, Zillow is also getting their brokerage license in certain states. So how do you feel about them? Do you think Zillow is a competitor in some type of ways, or are you still seeing them as just a tool? What do you think?
Well, I mean, this is a lot easier question for me to answer than the good things that they provide. uh, without trashing them because they're not worthy. They're not worthy of being trashed. That's not the right thing to do. They're not
I got you.
trash. They are a good company. Okay, but I do believe that their ultimate goal was and is to eliminate the realtor.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so if they could find a way, in fact, there is a large brokerage that has been growing exponentially over the last few years. Many times, pitching a certain model that is, getting people to come over because of, ways to get your money back or ways to get invested, things like that, that
Uh-huh.
I thought Zillow would try to buy as they grew. I thought
Right.
Zillow would come through and say, okay, it's going to be very hard to get Keller Williams to sell to us because that guy, Gary, seems to be hell bent on not, right? So let's come to these new guys. They've added a couple 100,000 agents, and boom, just like that, Zillow goes from no agents to a couple 100,000. I thought for sure that was going to happen. And it still
Uh,
could, obviously, but it
uh-huh.
didn't happen. And so I guess I was wrong. But ultimately,
Right.
yes, I believe their goal is get rid of the real estate agent, basically create a world where the real estate agent is a 9 to 5 desk job, right? Come in, punch the clock, go show homes. You're showing homes. You got to open doors, right?
Oh, right,
And
right. Yeah,
then,
that's true.
and then, boom, you just come back and say, All right, well, he's a conventional guy, so click the drop down conventional menu, boom, 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 all set, right? Like, and
Yep.
it's all you gotta do. Try to streamline it, very simple, very easy, take away some of the expertise, and that would be great. Honestly, it really would be great if that worked. But every transaction
Mm.
is not the same. Every transaction is not the same. Smooth transactions sometimes have bumps. Bumpy transactions sometimes are real bad, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and learning the legal aspects of what you can and can't do. Man, I'm still learning, easily still learning. I'm in a legal class with something I've learned before, and someone says, "How many exemptions are there to not having to fill out the seller's disclosures?" And I go, two. And she says, "Joe, you said two last time. It's not two." And I said, "Oh, right, you're right. It's not two. And it's nine. Okay, there's nine exemptions to filling out the seller's disclosures. Point is, that's a legal thing that we all are supposed to know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I knew the main two: estate sale and bankruptcy, like a foreclosure or what have you, bank sale. There's
Right.
others. There's caveats to those, right? So there's nine. So it's that type of stuff that if we eliminate the realtor and we become just a warehouse, right, of bodies that are just punching buttons,
Yep.
you're not going to know those types of things, and it's going to get people in trouble as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Um, you know, their ad sales space has gotten crazy expensive. So
Mm.
when I first got in the business, 7 or so years ago, even then it was basically over 100 and some bucks, per lead. Now you get into some of these cities, Livonia, Northville, Plymouth, you're talking a few $100 just for someone to say, "I saw the house, it had pretty pictures, and
Right.
I clicked on it. I didn't know you were going to call me." You
Right,
know,
right. They may or may not. It could have been by accident they hit that button or something like that. And oh man,
Absolutely.
wow.
Absolutely. Or they might be working with, a coworker of yours,
That's a
and they
fact.
go,
Yeah.
"Hey, I just saw this house, and so I clicked on it. I didn't know you were going to call me. I'm working with Tom," something like that. You're like, "Ah, all right. And then you talk to Tom and say, "Hey, you working with this guy?" "Yeah, yeah, I've been working with him for a minute." So it's not all, of course, there's that goal of trying to get the sales guy off the phone, but
Mm-hmm.
there's also a lot of people that legitimately did not need your services and you just paid hundreds of
Yeah.
dollars for.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
there's I feel like a lot of negatives that come along with their process, and honestly, the biggest one is the Zestimate. Okay, literally this morning, right before this, someone was at the house that we're talking about a house I've never seen in my life, and he said, "Well, how much would you list it for?" I said, "I really can't tell you because I haven't seen it." Right,
Right,
like
right.
if your house is worth $300,000, but I come through and find out that you got a foundation that's cracked, it may not
Mm.
be worth 300,000.
Correct.
If you're in a neighborhood of houses that are worth 250,000 and you've done all the updates and all the upgrades and those $250,000 houses aren't, you're worth a little bit more. I can't go too
Mm-hmm.
high because the comps, but I go higher,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So the comps on a Zestimate have traditionally been everything that's for sale. So again, I'm in that $300,000 neighborhood and I list my house for 600,000 for sale by owner. Boom, that's a comp on that Zestimate. Well, guess what just happened to everybody's, you know, estimated, value. It all
Right.
shot up for temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And as a for sale by owner, which is on Zillow, can be on Zillow, it's my job to come through and change it to sold. If I never change it to sold, it sits there forever, that type of thing. So it's constantly changing those comps on his estimate.
Mm.
You
Oh
know,
wow.
so it can be less helpful. It certainly is. Again, it's a tool. It's just about
Correct.
being a tool. It's a
Correct.
great tool for people. I'm telling you, as much as I personally, as a realtor, dislike Zillow, it is a great tool, but it is
Mm-hmm.
not the be all end all, right? Just like
Mm-hmm.
WebMD isn't when
Mm-hmm.
you got like this pain in your arm and you're like, dang, should I go to the hospital? You might WebMD it real quick and then
Right.
decide, that you should or shouldn't, right? That type of thing. And literally, Zillow, when they started, they said they wanted to be the WebMD of real estate. They wanted people to be able to search and find their
Mm.
results like that and move along. So it's no coincidence that that was what popped into my head. I think because I'm ingrained to remember that when they started, dang near a couple decades ago now, that they said they wanted to be WebMD. And
Yeah.
what happens when you go
Yeah.
to the doctor's office? Doctor says, "Yeah, I'm glad you saw the commercial for Celestra or some name I'm kind of making up, right? And
Right,
it's like,
right, right.
but you're not a candidate for it. So the commercial was useless, that type of thing. I WebMD'd this and I think I'm having a stroke, doc. It's like, you're not having a stroke. You just have a
Right.
little bit of high blood pressure. We're going to give you this statin and we're going to do that, that type of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? That's what Zillow is as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's an overall statement with technology in general. It's just a tool. Depending on your perspective and how you use the tool, it could be used to build or to destroy, or to assist or to take over, whatever the case may be. And like I said, that's with everything. We can talk about AI, we can talk about social media, we can talk about everything, but ultimately, it just depends on how you're using it.
Yep,
Is just how I
100%.
like to overall put it. But I'm glad you spoke on that. You definitely had a lot of words to say in regards to Zillow, and I get it because I've had agents express that pretty much that same sentiment when it comes to Zillow. It's like, yeah, it's a tool, but we got to watch out for them. We got to
Hmm.
watch out for them. So,
Hmm.
yeah, thank you for keeping that consistent. I got to ask you, since we're still keeping it in technology, I got to ask you about Google Maps now. I don't know how much experience you have with this, but if so, please, can you tell me how important do you think it is for homeowners to protect their privacy by blurring out their homes on Google Maps? And do you or have you ever recommended this?
I've never recommended it. I think the opposite way, in the sense of once you're ready for your home to be for sale, again, any way people can get eyes on it is a good way, as far as I'm
Right,
concerned,
right.
right? So, and not all. I live in a subdivision. Okay, so we've got, I don't know, six, eight, 10 different types of houses, and then they look a
Hmm.
little different based on their elevation, right?
Right.
But not everybody lives like that. Sometimes you live on farmland. Sometimes you live on acreage. Sometimes you live on a lake.
Hmm.
Man, that Google Map view is key before we even show up to that appointment, because you want to actually see, um, are you really off of, Inkster Road? Or, I mean, are you just off of it, but you're like 300 feet back? I know what the
Right,
MLS
right.
says, but what are you really? Let me see that Google Map view, right?
Hmm.
Oh, you say you're on a lake. Let's see where you're at on the lake. And I'm part of this, okay? I'm looking for something out of state. And the first thing I do is look at the map because I want to see exactly where it is when it comes to the dock and the lake and the this and that. That Google Map view is huge. But I think you brought up a good point. You do have to think about your privacy, and you do have to
Yeah.
think about, that these Google images can definitely have a lot of, stuff on there that people don't realize is actually there.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And see, I can't think of any specific situations. I don't even think I've ever been on Google Maps and saw a house blurred. I don't think I've ever saw anything like that. I didn't even know that was possible
Yeah.
until I started doing research and seeing things of people having concerns about privacy and security. And I'm like, okay, I get it. So, are there any other ways that homeowners can protect their privacy and security that's outside of the whole blurring your home on Google Maps?
Just in general, like, you're not for sale, you're just kind of sitting in your house right now, maybe listening to this and thinking, yeah, you want some privacy, and until maybe you're ready for sale, then you want the public
Correct.
to know.
Correct.
Man, that's a great question. Because outside of the Google Maps, I don't think like there's any other. I mean, Waze and Apple Maps aren't that in tune with your images that we might literally. I mean, I'll put it like this, man. I had someone come in to clean my windows on Friday, and she goes, "Well, I pulled you up on Google Maps. I can see you have about 35 windows. So this
Mm.
is around your estimate, right?" And I said, "Oh, in that case, it was really cool." But it's like, dang, she saw my 35 windows.
Yeah, yeah. She saw you eating breakfast that day
You're
when Google was
right.
driving past.
Exactly. And so that's the only one I can think of. But that is, I mean, I would say this. That's a good question for me to ponder and maybe think about coming back to for
Right.
my own self later. For people. My own
No, I
newsletter, my
get it.
own Facebook post, whatever. That's a great one. It really
See,
is.
because this is what I'm gonna say, man, and I've had this talk before. I I am a I guess I want to say I'm a very private person. I am, but I'm not in a certain way. Like I it's straight. I wouldn't want my home on Google Maps. I don't want my home on Zillow. I don't want my real estate agent to take a picture of me in front of my home when it's sold. I don't want any of that. I really don't even want my name on public records. Like that's how
Hmm.
much I don't want anybody to know about my home, my purchase, any of my assets. any of that. So, I mean, I guess the only thing I would probably, just speaking in that regards, maybe getting your home in an LLC. That way your name isn't on public record in that regards. I'm just brainstorming other ways to protect privacy and security. But besides, like you said, besides Google Maps and social media, or maybe a real estate agent posting you in front of your home, I can't think of too many ways where you would be exposed or exposing, your residence to people in the public. So
Yeah,
other than
I'll
the
tell you.
LLC thing, I would say, yeah, it's pretty limited on how you can protect it.
It is tough, right? I mean, because some things literally are public knowledge. I mean, now they
Correct.
might not be easy, right? I have easy access to public records, but you
Mm-hmm.
you don't without a real estate license. But if you want to take the time, you could absolutely find it, right? I could find whether people have been arrested. I could find, people that are out on parole right now. I mean, this is all just knowledge that's available with a very easy Google search.
True.
So
True.
you're right. There's probably some limitations, and so you just got to do what you feel is best. But definitely, I'm not big on the picture thing. I'm not against anyone who does it, and I appreciate seeing those smiling faces at closing and stuff. But I look at it like, for myself, I post about every one of my closings. I think almost every one of them. I try to leave their names out. They can tag themselves if they love that post so much, right? But it's none of your business who I'm actually working with. And especially
Right.
because
Right.
then if your friends see that I helped you find your house, they're going to know because you're going to invite them over, I think. But, they immediately can go, oh, yeah, Kevin bought this house over in Canton. Oh, man, he's over in that new subdivision. Man,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
I
that's a
heard
four
that's
hundred
expensive.
thousand dollar house. I didn't
Hmm.
know he could afford that.
Yeah,
You see
I
what I'm
didn't know he
saying?
had it like that. Yep.
Right. Exactly. Let's not go there.
Yep. Yep. And I'll tell you, as a person who really does work a lot with a lot of either referrals or people that I know, at least through social media, maybe you've seen me post for the last 5 years and I've seen you post, but we never met in person. But we have some connection more than just a search, right?
Right.
And I think that because of that reason, um, your privacy is very important to me. And I tell people,
Mm-hmm.
especially my closer friends, I'm like, hey, listen, I don't personally care if you got $2 or $2 million as long as you can qualify. And whatever you qualify and whatever you want to do, I'm happy to do it, and it's nobody else's business. If you want to tell them you paid cash for that $1 million house, you go right ahead. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. All I'm saying is I sold $1 million house. I'm not saying to who, and I'm not
There you go.
saying how, right? And I'm never telling how. Eventually, people figure out who, but no one will figure out how until you tell them. So
Precisely.
that's important. That's super important.
Yeah. Oh man, you get somebody that qualify for $1 million house with $2. Teach me how to do that. Teach me.
In the
All
bank,
right.
but you got to have something in the 401k.
I know, man. Something like you make it look good, man. Hey, Joe, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that you are a homeowner currently, correct?
Yes, I
Good, good, good. It's great for my next question. With that being
am.
said, let's say we take your home away. God,
Yep.
God forbid, but you take your home away. You are an inspiring homeowner right now, today, 2023. Knowing what you know now and with the resources that are available, what approach would you take to owning a home?
That's a good one. A big one would be to not be a little bit worried. And what I mean by that is, I was a homeowner during the Great Recession, as it's often referred to.
Mm.
And so I was a part of that fun process of losing lots of value. Okay.
Right.
We put 20% down. We put a we finished our basement. We put a deck on. We did this and that. We put new carpeting. And when we sold our house, we got a check for $1,000. All right.
Oh.
So again, without going to the specifics, you can understand
Oh.
if I put 20% down, but I got a check for $1,000 that equity
Ooh.
didn't add up. So effectively, I
I'm so
lost money,
sorry.
right? That's okay. I mean, because I bought a house that is now worth, exponentially more too, right? But that's what I mean. I would understand. Don't be so scared not to blow your budget. Absolutely never blow your budget. In fact, right now, if I was pre-approved for 500,000, I'd personally shop up to 450. That'd be my personal,
There you go.
approach. But I wouldn't be like, oh, this one's 455. I'm not going over that $5,000. No, I'd be willing to do a little bit something like that. So I wouldn't be so worried about that. I would
Hmm.
also focus a lot more on what I feel like my future is beholding. So when we bought this house, part of it was the current school district, part of it was our current drive to work.
Right,
Well,
right.
work's changed since then. And you can't foresee that. Okay, I can't foresee that I'm no longer going to be in this business and I'm going to be in that business. And I might not be able to foresee that, a hospital is going to fire a nurse practitioner and, ask her to take a different
Mm.
position or go to a different hospital. I can't imagine such a thing, right? Because all you hear about is
Mhm.
a nursing shortage and people need them and travel nursing.
Yeah.
But try to think about those types of things and try to envision, what if you didn't work at the place that you're at today? Where would you go? Would you stay local? Because, you know, if you're buying a house in Livonia because you work in Livonia, well, what happens if you don't work in Livonia? What happens
Correct.
if the company sells? Then
Correct.
what? Would you move? Would you have lived in Canton? Then live in Canton. It's a 20-minute drive to Livonia. Like those little things, little stuff like that.
Right.
Those would be huge. And then, of course, um, understanding my money. So something that I was fortunate because for a couple of years I dabbled in mortgages. I understood down payment. And so when we
Right.
bought this house, I said, what's the difference between this percentage down and that percentage down? Well, the
Mhm.
dollar amount per month was very little, but the dollar amount out of pocket was huge, right? Because
Right.
let's say you're looking at a $300,000 house. The difference between 10% and 20% is $30,000.
Correct.
$30,000 to maybe change your payment. Maybe, again, everything's different at different times. Maybe change your payment by $40. Now let's divide 40 into 10,000. How many months did it take to make up that $10,000 difference? So, man, we got very lucky too. We did it that way. We put the lesser amount down, and because of the increasing home values, we were able to refinance ourselves right out of PMI 14 months later.
Look
So
at
we didn't have to
you.
pay that. So that was fortunate.
Man.
Not everyone's going to have that, but everyone can have the
Yeah.
$40 divided by 10,000. Everyone can do that.
Yeah. That's
Those
that's
would be the
that's
big
a
things.
great story. That's a great and that's legit, man. Yeah. See that and that's a perfect example. See, you didn't know that initially, right? When you first
Hmm.
bought your home. So now you have that knowledge and the resources and things now. I love that was a great answer, man. That was a great answer. Thank you so much, Joe. Pulling up a chair to the closing table and talking business, sharing your knowledge. We appreciate that. At this moment, if you have any last words and or want to tell the people how to reach out to you, please do so now.
Any last words would just be, don't be afraid. The time is great as a seller, tough as a buyer, but don't be afraid. Just have patience. That'd be the
Mhm.
biggest thing there. As far as getting a hold of me, I'm always available, phone, text message. I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there. 313-283-4740. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook as well. J Muck Realty. I work for Next Home All Pro Realty. And I appreciate you guys having me on, man. This has been great. As you can tell, I can talk real estate
Absolutely.
forever, and I'm glad I was here for it.
Yes, Sirski. Appreciate you, Joe Muck. Reach out to Joe Muck, get you more bang for your buck. Thank you again. Hey, for our YouTube audience watching right now, if you got into this point in the video, do us a favor. Hit that thumb, aka the like button. We appreciate that. Make sure you also hit the share button and subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platforms, do the same. Give us a like, 5-star rating, and subscribe for our latest content. We always leave our audience with a question for them to think about before we leave, Joe. So for the audience, how do you feel about people blurring out their homes on Google Maps? Is it lame or do you support it? Leave your comments below. Besides that, we'll talk to you next time.